Humanity had always looked up at the stars, wondering if they were truly alone in the universe. The dream of exploring the vast expanse of space had long been a hope for many, but it wasn't until recently that humanity had the technology to make this dream a reality. After decades of research and development, Earth's most brilliant scientists and engineers had unveiled their greatest achievement, the Titan-class warship, a massive and powerful spacecraft designed not just for exploration but for protection. The warship was humanity's response to the growing threats from space, alien species who viewed Earth as nothing more than a prize to conquer. It was a secret project, known only to the highest levels of government and military, but it was ready. The world would soon know about it, but only after it had proven itself. At the helm of this monumental vessel stood Captain Iris Alden, a woman known for her strategic genius and unshakable resolve. She had been chosen to command the Titan-class warship, and now, as it sat in Earth's orbit, ready for its maiden voyage, she could feel the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. Captain Alden wasn't just leading a ship. She was leading humanity's last hope against an alien threat that was more real than most people cared to admit. Intelligence reports had confirmed the presence of a large, aggressive alien coalition, an armada of ships from different alien species, all drawn to Earth like sharks to blood in the water. Their intentions were clear: invade and conquer. The warship was Earth's response, a testament to the sheer ingenuity of humankind. Armed with advanced weapons, reinforced hulls, and state-of-the-art technology, the Titan-class warship could withstand battles that would leave any other vessel crippled. Yet, despite its impressive design and capabilities, humanity's leaders were nervous. They had placed all their trust in one ship, one crew, and one woman. Captain Alden paced the bridge, looking out at the stars beyond. Her crew had trained for this moment for years, but the pressure of what lay ahead was something none of them could have fully prepared for. The alien armadas weren't just any threat. They were an organized, highly advanced force that had conquered countless worlds. They would not be easy to stop. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Byrne, approached her. "Captain, we're ready for departure. The fleet is on its way. We've got to move fast if we're going to stop them." Iris nodded. "All systems go. It's time to show them what humanity is made of." As the Titan-class warship powered up, the vast emptiness of space seemed to press in around them. But there was no fear in the eyes of the crew. There was only determination. Earth had built its weapon, and now it was time to use it. The warship's engines roared to life, propelling them forward. Captain Alden's heart raced, but her focus never wavered. The journey had begun. The battle for humanity's future was about to start, and they would fight with everything they had. No matter how many armadas the aliens sent, they had no idea what they were about to face. The moment the Titan-class warship launched from Earth's orbit, the tension in the air was palpable. The world had been preparing for this moment for months, but now that the warship was finally in motion, there was a feeling of unease. Humanity's greatest weapon, the hope of survival, was being sent to confront an enemy that was as unknown as it was terrifying. On Earth, governments and military officials watched anxiously as the warship made its way toward the outer reaches of the solar system. They had hoped for the best, but deep down, they feared what the future might hold. The news of the alien armadas approaching had spread like wildfire, igniting fear in every corner of the globe. People weren't just afraid of the unknown. They were terrified of being powerless in the face of such an advanced threat. In a highly classified command center, Captain Alden stood in front of a large screen, watching as the alien armadas began to move closer to Earth. A coalition of different species, their ships gliding through space like shadows of death, ready to invade. These beings were no strangers to war. They had conquered countless worlds and destroyed entire civilizations without a second thought. They were ruthless, powerful, and, until now, undefeated. On the other side of the universe, the alien warlord Zorvac watched with cold eyes as his fleet advanced toward Earth. He had spent years gathering forces, uniting various alien species under his command. And now the time had come to claim Earth as part of his growing empire. He believed the humans were no match for his armada. Their technology was primitive, their military forces scattered, and their governments divided. He couldn't have been more wrong. Zorvek's ship, the Oblivion, was the heart of the invasion force. Its enormous size dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Thousands of alien ships, sleek and deadly, surrounded it, ready to rain destruction upon Earth. To Zorvek, this was just another conquest, another world to dominate. The humans, in his mind, were nothing more than insects to be crushed beneath his heel. Back on the Titan-class warship, Captain Alden felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. The Earth was now the target of an intergalactic invasion, and there was no turning back. She had a fleet of her own, but it was far smaller, less experienced. Yet she wasn't worried about numbers. What she had was humanity's greatest strength, ingenuity. The Titan-class warship wasn't just another ship. It was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of taking on far larger enemies. But even with this powerful weapon, Captain Alden knew the stakes were high. She had to act fast. The longer the alien armadas remained unchecked, the harder it would be to protect Earth. The only way to fight this battle was to strike first, hard and fast. "Lieutenant Byrne," Captain Alden called, turning toward her second-in-command, "prepare for immediate deployment. We'll need to hit them before they can get any closer to Earth. We can't let them gather their forces." "Aye, Captain," Byrne replied, his voice firm with resolve. As the Titan-class warship adjusted its course, Captain Alden felt the full weight of responsibility settle in her chest. She wasn't just commanding a ship. She was leading humanity's fight for survival. The war had begun, and every decision she made now would determine the future of her people. The cold silence of space stretched out before them, but in her mind, the battle was already raging. The vastness of space stretched before the Titan-class warship, a dark canvas filled with endless stars. It was silent, a peaceful silence that contrasted sharply with the urgency on board the ship. Captain Iris Alden stood on the bridge, her eyes focused on the glowing screen in front of her. The alien armadas were not far now, within striking distance. They had no choice. It was time for humanity's first strike. "Captain, the alien fleet has entered the outer sector," Lieutenant Marcus Byrne reported, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We have a few minutes before they come into range." Captain Alden nodded, her face expressionless. She had been preparing for this moment for months, but now that it was here, the reality of what was at stake settled in her bones. Every decision she made would have consequences, not just for the crew of the Titan-class warship, but for all of Earth. "Prepare the main weapons, Lieutenant. We need to send them a message they won't forget," she ordered. The crew worked quickly, their movements precise and practiced. On the screen, the enemy fleet grew larger, their ships sleek and menacing, gliding toward Earth. They looked like a swarm of locusts, ready to devour everything in their path. But humanity's weapon was about to show them just how wrong they were to underestimate Earth. "All systems are ready, Captain," Byrne confirmed. Captain Alden took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the command console. She had to make the first move count. If the Titan-class warship faltered now, humanity's fate would be sealed. "Fire!" The command rang out like a thunderclap, and the Titan-class warship unleashed its full power. The massive energy cannons on the ship's side charged up, glowing briefly before releasing a torrent of destructive energy. The beam shot through the cold void of space, a blinding light that collided with the first wave of alien ships. In an instant, several of the alien vessels were disintegrated, their hulks crumbling under the immense power of the warship's weapons. The rest of the fleet faltered, shocked by the sudden, overwhelming attack. They hadn't expected such power from humanity. "Damn," one of the alien commanders cursed, watching as his fleet was torn apart. "Their ship. It's not like anything we've seen before." Zorvek, the leader of the alien armada, stood at the helm of his flagship, the Oblivion. His eyes narrowed as he observed the destruction unfolding. The human's weapon was more powerful than he had imagined, but he refused to back down. "This will not stop us," Zorvac snarled, rallying his forces. "We will crush them and take their world." Back on the Titan-class warship, Captain Alden felt a rush of adrenaline as the first strike landed. Her heart raced, but she kept her focus. The aliens were clearly shaken, but they were not defeated. This was only the beginning. "Recalibrate and fire again," Alden commanded. As the crew moved swiftly to comply, Captain Alden's mind raced. She knew this battle was far from over. The alien armadas would regroup, and the fight would get harder. But humanity had shown the universe that they weren't easy prey. They could fight back. The Titan-class warship fired again, and the battle raged on. The first strike had been a success, but it was only the first step in what would be a long and difficult war. Earth's survival depended on how well they could hold their ground. The enemy had been shaken, but they weren't beaten yet. The war was just beginning, and Captain Alden was ready to lead her crew through the storm. The Titan-class warship hung in space, its massive frame a dark silhouette against the backdrop of distant stars. The battle had begun, and humanity's greatest weapon had made its mark. The alien fleet had been rattled, but not defeated. Captain Iris Alden knew this was only the beginning. They had shaken the enemy, but the true fight was still ahead. Inside the warship's command center, the crew was on edge. Despite their victory, the reality of the situation was setting in. The alien armadas weren't just backing off, they were regrouping, preparing for another, stronger attack. They had underestimated the Titan-class warship, but now they knew what it was capable of. And if humanity didn't act fast, the odds could quickly turn against them. "Captain," Lieutenant Marcus Burns' voice broke through the tense silence. "We've detected more ships coming in from the outer rim. The main fleet is reassembling. We need to act now, or they'll outnumber us." Alden clenched her jaw. She had been prepared for this. It was no secret that the alien forces were vast, and their technology was advanced. But humanity wasn't just relying on the warship's firepower. They had something else that made them dangerous: human ingenuity. "Set course for their central command ship. If we can take down their flagship, we might be able to break their resolve," Captain Alden ordered. "All hands, brace for battle." The crew sprang into action. The Titan-class warship turned, its engines roaring to life as it sped toward the enemy's main fleet. The alien ships, sleek and deadly, moved as one, their formations precise and coordinated. But the humans weren't backing down. Captain Alden's eyes locked onto the massive form of the alien flagship, the Oblivion, looming in the distance. It was a massive structure, far larger than the Titan-class warship, its weapons bristling with power. But it was also a target, and Alden knew that if they could destroy it, the alien armadas would lose their central command. Without leadership, their forces would be in disarray. As the warship closed in on the flagship, Captain Alden knew the risk was enormous. The Titan-class warship was powerful, but it was also a lone ship surrounded by a much larger enemy force. They would have to strike fast and strike hard. "We're close enough to fire," Burns said, his voice steady but tense. "Do it," Alden commanded, her focus sharp. Full power to the main guns. The warship's weapons powered up once again, the energy cannons charging with a bright, deadly glow. Then, with a deafening blast, the first shot was fired, cutting through the dark void of space. It struck the Oblivion with a force that shook the flagship to its core. The alien ship shuddered, its shields flickering as it absorbed the blow. But it wasn't enough to stop the Titan-class warship. "Fire again," Alden ordered, her eyes never leaving the screen. The second shot hit its mark, piercing through the flagship's outer defenses. The Oblivion groaned under the assault, but the aliens didn't retreat. Instead, they retaliated, sending waves of fire in return. The battle between the Titan-class warship and the alien armadas escalated quickly. The crew fought with everything they had, using every trick and tactic at their disposal. Humanity had always been the underdog, but now, in the cold void of space, they were proving that they could stand up to the galaxy's greatest threats. As the battle raged on, Captain Alden felt a surge of pride. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their place in the universe. And they weren't going to lose. With every shot fired, humanity's resolve grew stronger. The enemy had no idea what they were up against. The battle had raged for hours, and Captain Iris Alden's focus never wavered. The Titan-class warship had been relentless, striking with precision and power, but the alien armadas were no pushovers. Even though they had taken down several ships, the enemy kept coming, their numbers seeming endless. The Oblivion, the alien flagship, had taken several hits but refused to fall. The battle was turning into a grueling back and forth, and Captain Alden knew they couldn't afford to keep fighting this way for much longer. Their resources were limited, and the alien forces were vast. Humanity's warship was powerful, but they needed more than firepower to win this war. As the crew worked tirelessly, Alden stood by the main command console, analyzing the situation. Her mind raced with calculations, tactics, and strategies, but something was off. It wasn't just the alien forces closing in. It was the sudden change in the behavior of some of her own crew. "Lieutenant Byrne, I need a report on the status of our weapons systems," Captain Alden said, her voice calm, but with an edge of urgency. Byrne glanced up from his station, his face pale. "Captain, there's a malfunction in one of the main cannons. We're not sure why yet, but it's going to take some time to fix." Alden's brow furrowed. "A malfunction. We've gone through all the checks. There shouldn't be any issues." "Understood, Captain," Byrne replied, but there was something in his eyes that didn't sit right with her. The look was subtle, but Captain Alden trusted her instincts. Something was wrong. She turned to her tactical officer, Ensign Lila Grant, who was overseeing the ship's defense systems. "Ensign, what's the status of our shields? Are we taking any hits from the enemy?" Grant hesitated, glancing at the screen before her. "We've taken minor hits, Captain, but nothing that should cause any concern. Our shields are holding up, mostly." Alden's eyes narrowed. She could feel it now. A tension in the air, a ripple of something beneath the surface. She didn't like what she was hearing. The malfunction in the weapon systems, the weak explanation about the shields, the uneasy looks from her crew. It all felt wrong. "Lieutenant Byrne," Alden said sharply, "I want to know everything about that cannon malfunction. And Ensign Grant, I want a full diagnostic on the shields. No excuses." Both officers nodded, but Captain Alden could see their unease. They were hiding something. She didn't know what it was yet, but she would find out. As she turned to leave the command center, a sudden explosion rocked the ship. The Titan-class warship shuddered under the impact, throwing Captain Alden off balance. She caught herself, her heart racing, and rushed back to the command console. "Report," she demanded, her voice commanding. "It's coming from the lower levels, Captain," the voice shouted from the tactical station. A breach in the hull. The explosion came from within the ship. It wasn't the enemy. A sinking feeling washed over Alden. This was no accident. Someone on her ship had betrayed them. Someone had sabotaged the warship, putting everyone's lives at risk in the middle of a battle for humanity's survival. "Find out who did this," Alden growled, her jaw tightening. "And make them pay." Her mind raced. Who could be responsible? Who had the motive to destroy the Titan-class warship from within? The traitor was still out there, hiding in the shadows, and Alden knew that finding them would be just as important as winning the battle itself. The Titan-class warship had to stay intact. Humanity's survival depended on it. And now, Captain Alden was not only fighting the alien invaders, but a traitor in her midst as well. The battle outside the Titan-class warship was becoming more intense by the minute. The alien armadas had regrouped and were now attacking with a fury that caught even Captain Iris Alden off guard. The Oblivion, Their massive flagship had taken heavy damage but remained intact. Zorvak, the alien warlord, was not going to let Earth fall without a fight. Inside the warship, the atmosphere was tense. The crew had been working nonstop, but the sabotage from within had shaken their confidence. Captain Alden's instincts had been right. The malfunction in the weapons systems wasn't a simple glitch. It had been deliberately caused. A traitor lurked in the shadows, and Alden knew that if she didn't uncover them soon, their situation would get much worse. The crew was divided. Some were focused on repairing the damage from the explosion, while others continued to fight back against the alien forces. Alden felt the pressure of both duties weighing on her. Every decision she made now was critical, and she couldn't afford to waste time. "Captain, we've lost 2 more of our cannons," Lieutenant Marcus Byrne reported, his voice tight. "We're down to half the firepower we had earlier." Alden didn't hesitate. "We'll make do with what we have. Power up the remaining weapons and fire at their flagship again. We need to weaken Zorvak's command ship as much as possible." Byrne nodded and quickly relayed the orders. The warship's remaining weapons powered up, and another massive blast of energy was released, striking the Oblivion with brutal force. The alien ship's shields flickered and weakened, but it wasn't enough to destroy it. Despite the growing challenges, Captain Alden remained focused. She wasn't about to let Earth fall without giving everything she had. Just as the warship prepared to fire again, a new report came in. The sabotage wasn't over. More explosions had been detected, this time in the lower decks, where the ship's vital systems were located. The traitor was still working, and Alden knew she had to act fast. "Lieutenant Byrne, I need you to stay here and continue firing at the enemy," Alden ordered. "I'll handle the sabotage." Byrne's face twisted with concern. "Captain, you can't leave the bridge. The ship needs you here." "I'll handle it," Alden replied firmly, locking eyes with him. "You've got the battle. I've got this." With that, Captain Alden left the bridge and headed for the lower levels of the warship. The corridors were dimly lit, and the sound of alarms echoed in the distance. Her footsteps quickened as she made her way toward the heart of the sabotage. Whoever was behind this wasn't going to get away. As Alden reached the lower decks, she noticed the heavy smell of smoke and the crackle of fire. Several doors had been blown open, and the damage was worse than she had imagined. The sabotage had been planned with precision, and someone on her ship had intimate knowledge of its layout. Her mind raced. The traitor could be anyone. One of her officers, a crew member, or someone who had been on the warship from the beginning. She had trusted them all. But now, trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the corner of her vision. Alden spun around, her hand instinctively going to her sidearm. The figure was tall, cloaked in darkness. Alden's eyes narrowed as she stepped closer, determined to confront whoever was behind this. "Stop right there," she commanded. The figure didn't move. Instead, they slowly turned around, and Alden's heart skipped a beat. It was Ensign Layla Grant, her tactical officer, the last person she had expected. Grant's eyes glinted with something cold, something she hadn't seen before. "I'm sorry, Captain," she said, her voice low and steady. "But you're too late." Alden's pulse quickened. The traitor was here, and the warship's fate was now in her hands. Captain Iris Alden stood in the dimly lit corridor, her pulse racing as she faced Ensign Layla Grant, the very person she had trusted to protect the warship's systems. The reality of the betrayal hit her like a punch to the gut. The traitor was right in front of her, and the warship's fate was now hanging by a thread. Grant didn't seem fazed by Alden's commanding presence. In fact, she looked calm, almost eerily so. "You're too late, Captain," she repeated, her voice cold. "The sabotage is done. The Titan-class warship is falling apart. Zorvak's victory is inevitable." Alden's mind raced. She couldn't let the warship fall. Earth depended on this ship. She had to stop Grant, but how? Her hands tightened around her sidearm, but a sudden thought stopped her. If she killed Grant, Would that be the end of the sabotage, or would she be playing into the hands of a larger scheme? "What did Zorvak promise you, Ensign?" Alden asked, her voice steady. She needed answers. She needed to know what had driven her most trusted officer to betray her. Grant smirked, a twisted smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You wouldn't understand. Zorvak offered me something no one else could: power. The chance to be more than just a pawn in a human war." Captain Alden's eyes narrowed. Zorvak had been manipulating more than just the alien fleet. He had managed to turn one of Earth's own officers against them. But it didn't matter now. Alden had a choice: allow Grant to destroy the warship, or find a way to stop her and take back control. "You think Zorvak will give you power?" Alden said, her voice hard. "You're nothing to him. You're just a tool to be discarded when he's done with you." Grant's eyes flashed with anger. "You don't know him like I do. He's promised me a future, something the humans could never give me." Captain Alden could see that Grant had been blinded by the promise of power, but there was still a chance to stop her and change the tide of the war. "If you're really loyal to Zorvak, then you're as good as dead," Alden said. "Because once the Titan-class warship is destroyed, humanity will fight back, and your precious alien army won't stand a chance." For the first time, doubt flickered in Grant's eyes. "You think you can still win, even with the sabotage? Even with all of Earth's forces on the brink of collapse?" Alden took a step closer, her voice calm and determined. "Yes, because we're human. We may be the underdogs, but we fight smarter. And right now, you're not the only one with allies." Grant laughed bitterly. "Allies? You think you can win this war with a handful of human soldiers? Zorvak is unstoppable." Alden's lips tightened. She wasn't about to let Earth fall without a fight. "You're wrong, Ensign. We've already proven that we can defeat the alien forces, and now we'll prove that even when betrayed from within, we can still rise." Just as Alden spoke, a sudden signal came through on her communicator. It was Lieutenant Marcus Byrne from the bridge. "Captain, we've got something unexpected. A faction of defected aliens has come forward. They want to help us. They're offering to join forces against Zorvak." Alden's heart skipped a beat. This was the break they needed. An unexpected alliance. Alien rebels willing to fight against their own kind. It was a slim chance, but it was a chance nonetheless. She turned back to Grant, her voice steady. "You're not the only one with allies, Ensign. I'll stop Zorvak, and I'll stop you too. You can't hide behind betrayal forever." With that, Alden turned and hurried toward the bridge. She had new allies to consider, and she needed to act quickly. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Captain Iris Alden felt a spark of hope. The tide might be turning in humanity's favor after all. The Titan-class warship surged through the void of space, its engines roaring with the power to rival the most advanced alien fleets. Captain Iris Alden stood at the command center, watching the view screen as the alien flagship, the Oblivion, loomed ever closer. This was it, the final confrontation. The alien fleet was still powerful, but something had shifted. The unexpected defection of a faction of alien rebels had given humanity a much-needed advantage. They had a chance to end this war and show Zorvak and his forces that humanity was not just a victim. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Captain, the enemy fleet is ahead," Lieutenant Marcus Byrne said, his voice tight with anticipation. "Their flagship is within range. This is the moment we've been waiting for." Alden nodded, her face calm despite the chaos unfolding around her. The sabotage had been dealt with, thanks to the timely actions of her loyal crew. Now, with the alien rebels on their side, they had a chance to hit Zorvak where it hurt most. "Fire the main cannons," Alden commanded, her voice unwavering. The crew worked quickly, powering up the weapons. The massive energy cannons on the warship hummed to life, and with a deafening roar, a concentrated blast of energy shot toward the Oblivion. The beam slammed into the alien flagship, tearing through its shields and causing the hull to crack and groan under the assault. Direct hit, Captain. Ensign Layla Grant, who had been taken into custody after her betrayal, reported from the lower deck. The sounds of her earlier sabotage had been dealt with, but Alden's eyes could not forget the treachery. Despite the damage, the Oblivion didn't go down. Zorvek's ship was still fighting, its weapons firing back with all the might of the alien armada. The enemy forces were desperate, launching wave after wave of attack, trying to overwhelm the Titan-class warship. "Hold steady," Captain Alden said, her eyes locked on the view screen. "We've trained for this. We are humanity's last hope." As the warship absorbed enemy fire, the crew worked in perfect sync. Each person knew their role and performed it with precision. The alliance with the alien rebels was paying off. Their ships, sleek and fast, darted in and out of the enemy lines, providing cover fire and distracting Zorvek's forces just long enough for the Titan-class warship to strike. "We're damaging their main engines, Captain," Lieutenant Byrne reported. "The Oblivion is slowing down." Alden felt a surge of hope. This was it. Zorvek's flagship was on the verge of collapsing. The alien forces were losing their momentum, and with their flagship faltering, the rest of the armada would be left in disarray. "Prepare for the final strike," Alden commanded. "We need to finish this now." The crew responded without hesitation. The Titan-class warship's weapons powered up once more. The energy crackled, building to an intensity that would leave the enemy with no chance of recovery. Captain Alden knew this final shot would either end the war or make humanity's survival impossible. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The final blast tore through the dark expanse of space and hit the Oblivion with a force that shattered its outer defenses. Zorvek's flagship groaned under the weight of the blast. And then, silence. The ship, once a symbol of alien power, was no more. The remaining alien ships hesitated, uncertain, as the Titan-class warship and its rebel allies moved in for the kill. The Armada, once so organized, was now in chaos. Zorvek's forces were crumbling. Captain Alden exhaled slowly. The war was over. Earth had won. As the remnants of the alien fleet retreated, Alden allowed herself a moment of relief, but she knew this wasn't the end. The victory had come at a high cost, and the scars of the battle would remain. Still, humanity had proven something to the universe. They weren't just survivors. They were fighters. "Victory is ours," Alden whispered to herself. The journey ahead would be difficult, but humanity had shown that they could stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. The Titan-class warship floated in the silence of space, the battle now over, but the weight of the victory still heavy on Captain Iris Alden's shoulders. She stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen. The alien armadas that had once threatened Earth were now in retreat, their ships scattered or destroyed. The Oblivion, Zorvek's flagship, was no more, a lifeless hulk drifting through the void of space. Yet, despite the triumph, the mood on board was somber. The war had taken its toll. The crew of the Titan-class warship, though victorious, had lost friends, comrades, and allies along the way. The scars of the battle were etched deeply on their faces, and the reality of the sacrifices weighed heavily on every one of them. "Captain," Lieutenant Marcus Burns said, his voice quieter than usual as he approached Alden, "the enemy is in full retreat. We've won, but we've lost so much." Alden turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "We lost people. We lost ships. But we didn't lose Earth. We didn't lose this fight." Byrne nodded, but the sadness in his eyes didn't fade. The cost was high, too high. The truth was undeniable. In the final hours of the battle, the Titan-class warship had taken significant damage, and though it had managed to deliver the crushing blow to Zorvek's forces, the crew had paid for it. Many were injured, and some were lost forever. The ship itself would need extensive repairs. They had won, but the victory had been costly. Alden's gaze drifted to the view screen again. Earth was safe, But the galaxy had changed. The alien armadas that had once seemed invincible had been shattered. Humanity had shown them that they were not to be underestimated. Yet Alden couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only the beginning. Zorvek's forces were scattered, but they weren't gone. There were other enemies out there, other threats to Earth's future. This war was over, but humanity's place in the universe was far from secure. "We've proven something today," Alden said, her voice strong, despite the sadness in her heart. "We've shown that humanity can stand against the greatest forces in the galaxy, but we're not finished. There's still more work to do." Byrne looked at her, his eyes meeting hers. "What do you mean?" "There will be others," Alden said softly. "Zorvek wasn't the end, but now we know what we're capable of. And that means Earth has a chance. We have a chance." The thought of what was to come filled Alden with a quiet determination. The war was over, but the universe had just begun to take notice of humanity's strength. They were no longer the weak, vulnerable species they had once been. They had proven that they could fight back, that they could win. But with this victory came a responsibility, one Alden knew they would have to live with for the rest of their lives. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Ensign Layla Grant, who had been removed from her post after her betrayal. Her voice was hesitant, but there was something different in her tone. "I've been thinking," Grant said, her eyes downcast, "about what I did, about what I almost destroyed. I was wrong." Alden studied her for a moment. The ensign had been a traitor, someone who had almost caused the warship's destruction. But now, standing before her, there was a sense of remorse. It wasn't forgiveness that Alden was offering, but something more complicated, understanding. "You made a mistake," Alden said, "but this war is over, and the past can't be changed. What matters now is what we do next. We rebuild, we move forward." Grant nodded, silently acknowledging her captain's words. Alden turned back to the view screen, a new sense of resolve forming within her. They had won, but the true battle was only just beginning. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, and now it was time to see what the future held. The Titan-class warship drifted slowly back toward Earth, its once pristine hull now battered and scarred from the intense battle. The war was over, but the victory had left its mark. Crew members moved about the ship, tending to the wounded, making repairs, and reflecting on the cost of the fight. Humanity had faced an overwhelming force and emerged victorious. But the path ahead was uncertain. Captain Iris Alden stood on the bridge, gazing out into the vast expanse of space. The stars, once a distant mystery, now felt a little closer. Humanity had proven itself, but Alden knew that this victory had come at a great cost. The fight wasn't just about defeating the alien armadas. It was about what would come next. What did this victory mean for Earth's future? "Captain," Lieutenant Marcus Byrne called, his voice bringing Alden back to the present. "We've received a message from Earth Command. They want a full report on the battle." Alden nodded, turning from the view screen to face her second-in-command. "Prepare the briefing, Lieutenant, and let them know we'll be home soon." Byrne hesitated for a moment. "Captain, what happens now?" "We've won, but the galaxy, it's a different place now. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're part of something bigger." Alden felt the weight of his words. The battle had been won, but the war for Earth's place in the galaxy was only just beginning. Earth had made a statement. It had proven that it could stand up to the greatest forces in the universe. But would the other alien species, the ones who hadn't been part of Zorvek's invasion, accept humanity as a force to be reckoned with? Or would they see Earth as a target for future conquest? "We rebuild," Alden said softly. "We rebuild, and we prepare. This victory has shown the universe who we are, but the road ahead is unknown. We can't rest. We must remain vigilant." As the warship continued its journey toward Earth, Alden thought back on everything they had sacrificed to get here. The lives lost, the friendships forged, the mistakes made. It was hard to say whether the cost of the victory had been worth it, But one thing was certain: humanity had changed. They were no longer a fragile, isolated species. They had taken their place on the galactic stage, and they were ready to defend it. The crew of the Titan-class warship had become more than just soldiers. They had become symbols of humanity's resilience and determination. They had proven that even against overwhelming odds, Earth could rise to the challenge. And now, Captain Alden and her crew would return home as heroes, knowing that their victory was just the beginning of something much larger. "We'll face whatever comes next," Alden said, more to herself than anyone else. "We'll face it together." As the Titan-class warship entered Earth's atmosphere, the crew began to cheer. The long journey was finally coming to an end, but Captain Alden couldn't shake the feeling that the journey ahead would be even more difficult. The universe was vast, and Earth had made its mark. But there was much more to be done. The battle had been won. The war had ended, but a new era had just begun, and humanity was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead.